It's 2025, and here are the wedding trends that you would want to look out for. Welcome to the first episode of this year. If this is your first time on this channel, I'd like to say welcome. My name is Valerie. I'm a bridal gown designer, and I talk about all things related to weddings, fashion, and business. So if that's something that is of interest to you, please feel free to subscribe so that you do not miss an episode once it's released. Yes, so let's talk about trends. Trends. I am generally not one to follow trends 100%. But I think trends are usually good to kind of give you a guideline how to apply a certain probably look in this context, because we talk about fashion. So in my opinion, trends are not necessarily to be followed to the letter. Is it letter to the letter? However, yeah, So what we can say is a trend is a general direction in which something is developing, changing, and gaining popularity over time. So this is something that has happened since time immemorial, So even sometimes when somebody talks about the 80s trend or the 90s trend or the Great Gatsby's trend, those are things specifically in fashion that gained popularity over time. And so you'd find a lot of people who are actually going with that particular flow. So maybe you might be asking yourself, is it a must that we follow trends? I don't think so. But trends can actually help you. For example, when you're planning a wedding and you're not even sure where to start, maybe you're not even sure how to blend colors, you're not sure how to incorporate certain ideas and certain themes into your wedding. A trend, maybe the trend for the year, can actually be able to show you you can use this with this and go for this idea and blend it with this idea. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. But what I like to say is that ideally, it's best to go for things that are classic and timeless, because trends come and go. Maybe for you don't care about anything timeless. You just want what is in, and that is what we're going with. So that is still okay. But for some people, they want to be able to look back at their photographs, their wedding photos, and be like, okay, I think I like what I wore during my wedding or what we did during our wedding. And actually, it can still apply even today. That is probably like in 2046 that you're talking about that. So let's dive right into it and just try and talk about what are the things and the trends that I think have been gaining popularity over time, and we probably will see a lot more of this year. For one, this year we'll be seeing a lot of content creation for weddings. So back in the day, what used to happen is we'd get videographers to just come and just capture the event as raw as it. I'm sure for some of us who have seen our parents' wedding videos, you cannot stand just sitting and watching. How do I even say it? Yeah, no, it is a bit too much. It is a bit too much. Every step by step, no music, no, it's just literally capturing the event raw. Okay. So we've come from that to having cinematic kind of storytelling for weddings. And now, in addition to that, we have, because social media is such a big thing and a lot of us like to share our lives and what is going on with us on social media, we have now wedding content creators. So these are people who specifically come with their phone, capture the events of the day, and create content around that you can use and post on your social. So I think that's a good way of being able to give a snippet to your social media audiences of what happened on your wedding day without necessarily having to say that you're posting a video trailer. I foresee a situation where we will even reduce, like we might even do away with the whole videography thing and work with the short form content for our weddings. I personally would not do that because I feel like a wedding is such a sentimental occasion and it is a transitional moment of one's life. So for me, I still would advise to go for using a videographer to capture the essence and the story of your love, because that is what you'd want your children and your grandchildren to actually see how you guys came together, see how, like, just to get a glimpse of what your story was like. Probably 10, 15, 50 years, from now. I would still go for having like videographers on your wedding, even if it's cinematographers who can actually still create a beautiful story that you can share with your generations to come. It doesn't have to be a 1 hour, but your videographer or your cinematographer will capture key events of the day and be able to compile them into something that is comprehensible and enjoyable to watch. It can even be as short as 30 minutes or 15 minutes even. You don't need to have something so big. The other trend that I'm seeing coming up a lot is having a flower man or a flower grannies or flower grandpas. So this is basically, remember back in the day when you used to have little children, little girls and boys, called flower girls and page boys. Actually, it's interesting thinking about it. I never had any of those on my wedding. Reason being, they never just crossed my mind that I needed to have that, So for me, and then maybe also because it was COVID. So I think it wasn't something that was such a huge thing for me then. But now you have people having their grandmothers or their grandfathers or a grown man wearing either a tutu dress or something fun, because it's actually a quirky way to make the wedding interesting. So these are people who will come and spray petals all over to kind of prepare the way for the bride, because that was the essential purpose for the flower girls back in the day. So if that's your MO, you can think about it. It's an interesting thing. I don't know if I would do it, but that is just something that seems to be picking up. And it's kind of a funny, interesting way to spice up the ceremony itself. Another thing that I've noticed we are seemingly going back to, another thing about trends. Trends generally go and come, like the wise Solomon once said, there's nothing new under the sun. So if you think that the ideas that are coming up now are actually new, I don't think they are. Probably they might disappear in the next maybe 10 years and then they will revive again 30 years later. Another trend that I'm seeing us going back to is having an old school style of photography and videography. This is a style that a lot of photographers and videographers are adopting that style, but now a bit more, it's actually thought through and it's a deliberate way of shooting. I think it's pretty cool. I think it's a bit vogue actually, if you think about it. And it's something that you might want to consider, other than just having the typical airy and nice feeling kind of footage. But really, it is all up to you. You take what works for you and you throw away the rest. Another thing that I don't know if this is a trend, but I think it is something that is valuable, because I even did it for my wedding, is giving your guests a dress code. That is a heavy sigh, because I have realized that, especially us as Kenyans, when you're invited for a wedding, it is like just another outing that we go for. So you will find people coming in jeans and sneakers and a t-shirt, and especially men, you are highly guilty of this. And I think it's about time we need to change this. We can't be doing this in 2025. But giving your guests a dress code not only is aesthetically pleasing, even just for, visually on the day of, but even in your photos, there's a certain kind of element of ebb and flow that you will see in your photos. For me, that is something that I said, you know what, I don't want people coming in multicolors and looking, I don't know what. So I told my guests on the invite, shades of maroon. So you can imagine, for me and my husband, we were all in white. And so the idea was we were like the spotlight. So we are in white and then everybody else is in the shades of maroon. So I think it's a good idea also, just to kind of tame and avoid awkward dressing and misplaced dressing for guests. It's good to just give your guests a dress code, and it helped. Yeah, even my grandparents were like, "What is that maroon?" Okay, does this? Okay, fine. And I helped them to be able to dress, in that sense. So think about a dress code for your guests. Another trend that I think we are actually gradually growing into is sustainable wedding gowns. And what do I mean by sustainable wedding gowns? Basically gowns that you can actually rewear again. So they are called mostly 2-in-1 or 3-in-1. So it probably can be a full dress, it can be a half dress, it can be a ball gown, it can be, or it can mix into various things. So I've gotten a lot of those requests in that, because people are starting to see that me spending a certain amount on this one dress that I will wear for 8 hours might not necessarily be a feasible or an idea that makes sense. So why not be able to have the dress metamorphosize even throughout the day, so that, for example, during the service your dress looks one way, during the reception looks another way, then maybe during your after party it still looks another way. So there's the option of having 3 dresses, or there's the option of having 3 dresses in one. Okay, that is sustainable fashion wise. But then also, disclaimer, it is not for everybody, and I think I understand that, and I appreciate that everybody is different and everybody values very different things. So if for you that is not a thing that you want to do, you want your dress to stand out for that day because it is actually going to be worn only for 8 hours, by all means go for it. Okay, but if you're somebody who likes to save and think ahead, you can actually think about having your outfit broken down into various looks. So for me, that is something that I value, because I'm not big on gowns. And for me, that is for me. I like making it for other people, but for me, I wanted something, first of all, unique, and then something that I can say maybe I can wear it even later on. So I did a jumpsuit for my wedding. And obviously, my mom was like, no, I want you to wear a gown to look bridal, but you make the jumpsuit look bridal. And so at the end of the day, it's your wedding. You do what you want to do, obviously with respect to the elders, because we are still in Africa. Another trend that I have seen and I am seeing increasingly starting to grow . So for context, obviously we understand that our traditional wedding is based on our cultures, respective cultures where we come from. So where we are not necessarily inclined to wearing white wedding gowns and anything to do with white or Western influenced outfits. So we normally have the 2 weddings. There's a traditional wedding, and then there's the white or Christian wedding, as we've called it. When we say traditional, I think we all understand it is our rurashios, it is our nyombos, it is our koitos, it is our the kambazes. Hey, I'm sorry, Kambas, please forgive me. But we get, yeah. So there's the traditional ceremonies where this is actually the cultures, and the parents and the uncles and aunties come together to officially say that we are married. So I've noticed a lot of people, instead of doing both, because it actually can be quite costly, if you're going to have a traditional ceremony and then you have another still extravagant white wedding, most people are opting to do the signing of the certificate during the traditional ceremony. So you make it actually look flamboyant. You have your tents, you have your decor, you have your African inspired gown, and your African inspired attire for you and your bridal parties. Back in the day, by the way, traditional weddings never had a whole line of bridal parties. Nowadays, it's actually a thing, and it is very much welcome. So for me also, I would advise, if you feel like it's going to be very strenuous for you and your spouse to do both a traditional and a white wedding, it is actually open for you can opt to say, no, we're just going to do this African one, where we have the negotiations, where we have all the traditional elements that need to be done during a wedding ceremony, but now have a pastor, for example, come and officiate, or a sheikh come and officiate, or, whichever religion, for example, where you come from, you can have them come and officiate the marriage and sign the certificate on the day of the wedding. Again, another disclaimer, it is your wedding day, you do what you want. If you want the 2 big ceremonies, please go ahead and do it. Just don't go broke. Do not go broke. Again, do not go broke trying to live out an expectation that cannot be matched, or trying to live beyond your budget and beyond your means. So this is a bonus section, which I think should still go in line with trends. And these are things that I think we should just leave behind. And please let us not see them in 2025. Oh my God. Okay, so some of the things that I think we should be leaving behind in 2025, let's just stop. Just stop. I think I started mentioning the previous one was Wedding guests. This one is tied to wedding guests. If you're a wedding guest, if you've been invited for a wedding, if a couple have taken the time to invite you and say, please come and celebrate with us, please, please, please dress up for the occasion. Dress up. Take a leaf from our West African friends, because if it's a wedding, you will not show up in jeans. If you, as a Kenyan, were to attend a West African wedding, you even know yourself, I cannot embarrass myself. So what will I do? I will go to a designer and actually make a full outfit because I am going to a West African wedding. Why can't we do the same for our own? So this is a plea to anyone who is going to be a wedding guest this year. Make an effort. Just make an effort to honor the couple who have actually invited you. If you are a gate crasher, maybe you can get away with it. But even if you are a gate crasher, just by virtue of the fact that you decided to gate crash somebody's wedding you do not know, dress up so that you don't look like you're sticking out like a sore thumb. Let us try and put some effort in our outfits. Let's not just do jeans and sneakers, because that doesn't go for our wedding. Understand the theme of the couple. Understand the theme of what the couple is trying to achieve, and try and match that. It doesn't have to be exact, but just respect the ceremony. I mean, even if you're going to work, you do not just wake up and say, I'm going to wear pajamas because I'm going to work. No. Yes. So let us be good stewards of our invites. Another one. Okay, I will just summarize it and say, lack of bridal styling. There's a way in which we all envision how we want to look like for brides. Actually, no, I think it's for the whole bridal party. There's a way we envision how we want to look on the day of. However, I have noticed that there's a lot of mismatch when it comes to, for example, choosing your hair, choosing your jewelry, and how the gown and how the whole look comes together. I think we need to start paying attention to the overall look, and not just to buy something just because you have been told it is bridal. There's that place in town where we have bridal jewelries that are sold. I'm not going to mention it, but I think we all know what I'm talking about. Bridal jewelry that just looks tacky. Please, please, please. It is 2025. Can we stop buying jewelry, or rather that specific bridal jewelry, from there? It looks cheap. It looks unthought of. And then you just, because it is chunky, you just put it on your neck and your ears. And let us pay attention to how we style our wedding outfits. Okay. Even from how we choose for our lineup, let's think about it. Let's not just say, this is what I want, this is how I want to look, but it needs to be cohesive, because at the end of the day, you also want your photos to look nice. You want your videos to look really nice. So yeah, let's think about bridal styling a bit more this year, and specifically, let's do away with that jewelry that looks, let's just say, cheap. And this is a disclaimer is to say that I am not saying that you have to spend an arm and a leg to actually. There's affordable jewelry that is not that chunky jewelry that can be worn for weddings. Okay, you can Google, you can see the different options that are available. Let's just do away with that jewelry, please. And I think the last but not least, and it could be related to the previous one, is wearing unflattering gowns. This one pains me. It really does, because I feel sad. I actually feel sad when I go or attend a wedding and I see the bride's gown and I'm like, it does not look like her body. It does not bring out her best features. Okay. It is a very individualistic statement, so I can't even give a blanket statement and say this particular look looks flattering on somebody and blah blah blah. That is why a lot of times, especially when I have brides who come and we are having that consultation and discussion in terms of, so what do you want? I have to look at you and have to look at what you want and make sure that they actually match. If they don't, I will tell you, do not do that, because that does not look good on you, does not look good on your figure, does not look good on your skin tone, does not look good even with, whatever it is. But then this is what actually would work perfectly for you. You do not want, for example, to pick a mermaid dress and you do not have hips. It is good to be realistic with yourself and to know, I don't have hips. So picking a mermaid dress, honestly, is not going to make me look the best. Yeah. And unflattering can also be the cuts and the shapes do not hit the right places. There's a science to it. I don't think I have enough time to explain what I mean, but there's if you've ever watched any of these styling shows and you see when the stylist suggests specific outfits and specific patterns and specific shapes compared to what the individual would pick for themselves, you would see how there's such a huge change even in how their whole persona is actually elevated. And I think it's the same concept when it comes to choosing your wedding gown. It is your day. You are the star of the show. You want to look like a star of the show. You don't want to look like the person who has come to try and get married. Okay? If we can actually try and seek and look for gowns that flatter us, and you can do this visiting different bridal boutiques and trying out different dresses, and don't go alone, go with some friends, truthful friends who actually care about you and who can be able to give you honest feedback. If not, you can actually sit with a designer and ask them to give you advice in terms of what kind of gown would work best for you. So yeah, that is it from me from this episode. Excited for 2025. I really don't know what to expect. I have learned to be open-minded and take things sometimes as they come. If you have stayed this far, I just want to say thank you for staying tuned. Feel free to like, subscribe, share, comment. Maybe you can even share some of the things that you think we should do away with in 2025 when it comes to weddings, or maybe a trend that you have seen and you feel like would actually be a good addition and a good benefit to people who are getting married this year. So until the next episode, bye-bye.